This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, buenos días.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good night.
The work put down on fucking shoes. It's not your shoes.
Okay, you can start, and then I will have a roll call to see if we have a quorum. Or you don't need a quorum because today you are not going to make any motions to the council, but For the record, I usually keep track of the quorum. So we can have the roll call now if you wish. 9 o'clock.
Yes. Yes, good morning. It's 9 a.m. on August 25th, 2020. This is the DAP meeting, second day. And at this time, we will have a roll call.
Okay. Yahya Rivera,
Present.
Natalia Perdomo,
Present.
Julia McGrath,
Present.
Colleen Butler,
Present.
Sarah Stephenson,
Present.
Nelson Crespo,
Present.
Michelle Duval,
Present.
Graciela Garcia Molina,
Present.
Ruth Gomez,
Present.
Cristina Olan,
Present.
Orion Sadiq,
Present.
Alida Ortiz, Carlos Fachete,
Present.
Present.
Ashley. Sorry, I don't have the last name, just Ashley.
Sorry,
And then
this
I
is
have
Ashley Rufo.
Thank you. And then I have one person on the phone. And then Julian, do you have anybody else with you that can introduce themselves?
Yes, they're going to go ahead now.
Winston Liddy. Gregory Liddy.
Daryl Bryan.
All right, that's who I have with me today. Winston Lede, Gregory Lede, Daryl Bryan.
Okay. Today, Mr. Chairman, what we are going to do, first you can have a break of 5 minutes like yesterday at 10:30. But on Michelle Duval presentation, we'll call for each one of the DAP panel or any people present, but mostly the DAP panel, we want to hear from them. Let's say the top 5 priorities on each one of the categories. And she will give the introduction and she will follow the presentation. And then through the chair, Julian will call each one of the members, see if you can give us your top priorities for each one of the topics that you have. So I will tally up your priorities according to the group wishes, but please try for all of you to participate. The more of you that participate, the better product we can have in a 5-year plan. And with that, I believe that Dr. Michelle Duval I'm going to make her a presenter so she can start her presentation.
Yes, just to add here, we have Joshua Borg on the call also, and we have Gilbert Matthew Laban. Those are members, so we do have a quorum. So we can
Perfect.
start with the presentation now.
They're waiting on me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just make this a little bit bigger for you all to see. Okay, how is that?
Great.
Okay, great. So first of all, thank you all for allowing me to make this presentation to you today, Mr. Chairman, to you and the rest of the members. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I think most members of the DAP are familiar that the council has been working on development of a strategic plan. Unfortunately, the pandemic has, with most things, interrupted that a little bit. So we've had to change direction. So the last time I spoke to you in June, I gave you a bit of an update on where we stood. And I'm just going to provide a little bit of a refresher, particularly for any members of the public who are attending today and would like to participate. So we've had to shift gears a little bit in how we collect input. So this is the way that we are doing this. We're having a conversation about what the priorities are for among 4 different theme areas that I will be showing you in the upcoming slides. So first of all, I just wanted to quickly review, what is a strategic plan? It's just a plan to guide an organization towards a clearly stated set of goals. And so it is meant to address those 4 questions that you see on the screen. So where are we going? What's the vision? Where are we right now? Where are we starting from? How will we get there? What's our journey? And then how will we know if we've succeeded? So what are some checkpoints that we can set up along the way? And then these are just some of the reasons why it's a good idea to have a strategic plan. So this can help to establish priorities and future direction. So you all have been talking about the island-based fishery management plans that the council spent the last couple of years developing. So this is a new management framework. You all spent all day yesterday talking about different pieces of the conceptual ecosystem model. So a strategic plan can help you all and the council determine what you'd like to accomplish using this new management framework. It also allows the council to allocate resources efficiently, so time and effort. It can allow council to plan for uncertainty. We can't always predict what that is, but we can try to figure out what types of situations to anticipate and how we might want to respond to them. And then finally, this is really a decision support tool. So this provides transparency and accountability for the council stakeholders. So when people ask, well, why did the council make this decision, or why did it allocate time and resources this way? The council can point to the strategic plan and note that.
Pardon my interruption.
Yes.
Yeah, I had another number call me for a conference call, and it was all in Spanish. So I am just getting onto this line now. I just don't know if roll call has been taken.
Yeah, it's being taken, but now we can count you for the record. Thank
Yes,
you.
Yeah.
yes, Lance, you're counted for the record. So we're gonna save questions until after the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty.
Great, thanks so much, Mr. Sherman. So these are the 4 discussion themes that we're going to be talking about today. So the first is resource health. The next is social, cultural, and economic concerns. The next theme area is management and operational issues. So that's things like licenses for fishers, different management regulations, enforcement, things like that, and then communication and outreach. And so, as Miguel said, we're going to walk through these one at a time, and I have a list of discussion topics under each of these different themes. And so we're going to start with resource health. And these are just some visual representations of the types of things that fall under the category of resource health. So, climate change, pollution, invasive species, natural disasters, things like that. And what we're interested in knowing is, is this a complete list of issues? How do these impact the fishers and the communities on St. Thomas and St. John? What do you all believe are the most important issues or the impacts that are related to these issues that the council needs to be aware of? And how would you prioritize these issues that are related to resource health? And I should say, one of the things that we're very interested in learning through this process is, the differences in what the priorities are among the different islands and island groups. So, we understand that what might be a priority for St. Thomas, St. John might not necessarily be as high of a priority for St. Croix or for Puerto Rico. So those are the types of things that we are interested in learning. So this is a list of topics under resource health. Again, you all discussed many of these during your session yesterday, but things like invasive species, climate change, erosion and sedimentation, coastal development, natural disasters, habitat loss, enforcement, pollution, bycatch and discard mortality, an abundance of bait fish or forage, lack of biological or ecosystem information, overfishing, and illegal fishing. So I guess maybe the first thing I'd like to start with is, are there any issues that you think are missing from this list in terms of resource health? And then, as Miguel said, what we're most interested in learning about is, what are the top 5 priorities from this list that you all believe the council should be focusing resources on for the next 5 years? So are there any additions to this list of issues that might impact resource health?
Well, this is Julia McGrath for the record. I think one of your things you're missing here is, we have a lot of closures that are in effect already, and no assessments are being done. And one of the big issues that we've been struggling with is, since the SFA Sustainable Fisheries Act was signed off in 2005 and all the seasonal closures were put in place, there are really no assessments being done to these stocks. And I've been preaching this at every council meeting, every meeting I attend. When are the assessments going to be done? We talk about overfishing. As far as I'm concerned, there's no overfishing. Is there illegal fishing? Yes, there is some. But all that falls back on enforcement. A lot of these issues here all fall back on enforcement. What we need is, maybe we need someone to hold enforcement accountable. That's not happening. So maybe you could put accountability next to enforcement.
Okay.
So but the area closures, why? We have the MCD, we have the monument. Maybe like in other councils, they're looking at ways to let fishers go in and have the councils create a management plan to allow some type of fishing to be done in those areas. And maybe the Caribbean Fishery Management should be looking into, instead of putting more rules and regs on the fishers, how can we help the fishers to catch more instead of catching less, or drive them into a smaller area, which then creates overfishing.
Julian
thank you,
Michelle,
Mr. Chairman.
I would suggest something,
just,
Michelle, excuse me. Let Michelle finish her presentation through all the topics, because what Julian is talking about now falls into management and operations. And my suggestion is that, in order not to be repetitive, let's go through the whole presentation, all your questions, all your suggestions, until then we come back to resource health and we go by one. So you will know exactly where your suggestion will fall into. We have 4 or 5. So Michelle, you think we can do that very quickly and then come back to the first one?
Sure, yeah, because I was just going to note, Mr. Chairman, that your concern about closed areas is coming up on exactly one of the other slides. So I'll go ahead and go through the rest of the presentation and then see if anyone has any questions, and then we can go back and get everybody's input on what's missing and what might need to be added and priorities and how these things really impact St. Thomas and St. John. So
all right, thanks. You can go ahead.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
This is Gilbert Levon. Before we move off the slide, I'm relatively new to the DPA, but I just had a question. I guess it goes to habitat loss. Is there anything about rehabilitation or habitat creation here as well?
Let Dr. Duval finish the presentation. And
Yeah,
hold
so
that question. We can come back here.
Everyone, if you may please hold your questions for a few minutes, and we will come back to each one of them, and everybody will ask their questions. So please write your questions and concerns down right now and hold them. We're gonna come back in a few minutes since they want us to finish the presentation first, and then we come back. So just hold your questions. We're gonna come back and get everybody one by one to get the questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll just go ahead and move on to the next theme area, which is social, cultural, and economic concerns. And again, so this is the list. We had a visual representation on the previous slide. This is just a list. So, Mr. Chairman, this was where closed seasons and stock assessments to look at those species that are impacted by the closed seasons came in. We felt that there's certainly an economic impact from those closed seasons. So I think that's why we listed it here, but we can certainly move that around. Having an assessment or evaluation of these area closures and whether or not they're meeting their intended goals, increased costs of fishing, competition with foreign fishermen, recreational and commercial user conflicts. So our recreational fishers and commercial fishers, using the same areas, and is that causing any problems? Displacement of fishing communities through things like coastal development, the ability to be able to support a family through fishing full time or inability to do so, illegal or unlicensed commercial fishers, the impacts of lack of new entrants into the fishery, lack of social and economic data, excess gear, market instability, how is that impacting the social, cultural, and economic health of the islands? Infrastructure needs, you all were talking about some of these things yesterday, such as sites to land and launch boats, inadequate enforcement, and excess fishing capacity. So that's just the broad list of items we have under this theme. And so moving on, the next area is management and operational issues. So, these are things like different types of regulations, data collection, reporting, things like that. So this is the list of issues that we have here. So accurate and timely commercial and recreational catch data, enforcement of existing regulations, fisher involvement in data collection, whether that's fishery dependent data like catch information or fisher involvement in fishery independent information. So helping to say assess the health of the resource. Regulatory consistency, so having consistent regulations in territorial waters as well as federal waters, having clear management objectives, bycatch and regulatory discards. You also saw this under resource health, but it's also a management issue. How best to address that? Are there regulations that could be modified in order to reduce bycatch and discards? Limits on the amount of gear that folks are allowed to use, having cost-effective data collection technology, balancing commercial and recreational concerns and needs, incorporation of climate change and how that might be impacting the ability of fishers to fish as it is impacting where species, economically important species are located, a federal permit program, as well as territorial licensing requirements. So again, just a broad list of management and operational issues for you all to consider. And then finally, the last theme area is communication and outreach. So, educational materials, how the council communicates with its stakeholders, things like that. And so this is the list of items under this theme area, and the Outreach and Education Advisory Panel also reviewed this list a couple weeks ago, and so they are providing some of their thoughts on the priorities here and how to prioritize this list. But some of the things that fall under this list are frequency of communication, so having alerts or reminders of scoping meetings, public meetings, council meetings, the variety of tools that the council uses to communicate with stakeholders. So, whether that's by email, use of the council's website, the different social media accounts that the council has available, good old paper, text message alerts. So, what variety of tools does the council use, and are there others that people would like to see the council use that they're not using? Educational resources. So for example, information on science and stock assessments, having that information available on the website, information on business planning, restaurant choices, things like that. Some of these are items that the OEAP is already working on. Things like the Marine Resource Education Program, having access to those types of workshops. Improving general public awareness of fisheries issues. So, people who maybe they don't go out and fish, but they are concerned about the health of U.S. Caribbean fisheries and increasing their understanding of the issues. Having regular in-person outreach workshops on important topics. So, for example, organizing for each island a meeting that would allow people to come together in person to talk about and learn more about an issue that's of interest to stakeholders in the council in order to get more people involved in the process. And then another item was clarity and simplicity of presentation. So, we received some feedback that sometimes it's very difficult for people to understand some of the presentations that the council receives, and that the language is not necessarily as clear as it could be. There are a lot of acronyms and difficult to understand concepts, particularly with some of the scientific information. So, Mr. Chairman, that was all that I had. So I can go back to that first list under resource health if you would like, and we can take a look at that and then just work our way through the list.
Well, very good presentation as always. Yeah, let's start at the beginning, and we'll go to the different members and let them add or subtract or put their suggestions forward on any of the issues that we have here. So who would like to be the first one to talk? We're in resource health. And
Julian, you have two people who passed a turn to speak on this slide.
okay, yes, we have Matthew.
Sadik and Machid, yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's start off with Gilbert, Laban, and then we will go to Orion after.
Good morning. So just my questions had to do with habitat rehabilitation and habitat creation. Maybe they fall into one of these points already, but just was a question if that had been considered.
That's a great question, and I think it sort of falls. It's like the other side of habitat loss and destruction. So I think adding something with regard to habitat rehabilitation or creation could be a way to address habitat loss and destruction. So we could certainly add that to this list.
That's a very good idea.
Okay.
Well, Matthew, while we have you on, is there anything else on this slide? I don't know if you can see the slide or not, that you want to weigh in on or add?
No, I'm looking at the slide. I can see the presentation, but that was just my only question for now related to this slide. Thank you.
Okay, Orion?
Yeah, hi, Orion Sadiq for the record. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to follow up on what the chairman said earlier. I was actually going to use the closed area examples to highlight the lack of biological and ecosystem information as an important factor here. We at the on the EBFM, on the Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management Technical Advisory Panel, we're struggling looking for data sets, and St. Thomas St. John is particularly problematic with kind of long-running monitoring programs, other than some of the obvious ones. And we saw this be addressed with the new fishing forms for the landings data, which is great. But obviously we have a lack of historical data on the fishery. So I would like to just highlight the lack of biological and ecosystem information as a really important point here.
Very good. Thank you for your comment. Ruth?
Julian, if I may,
Yes.
let's take the chance through the chair, and please look at the list. I have a table here that was prepared by Diana, and I'm tallying up. Please tell us when you have your turn. Especially now, we added habitat rehabilitation. Your top 5 priorities. Let's say that my priority, I'm Dr. Sadiq, and my priority will be lack of biological ecosystem information, and then he can add three or four more. So that way, when we finish this slide, we will be able to tell Dr. Duval, these are the top priorities from Resolve Health, and then we'll follow with the others from the point of view of the DAP today and the people present. Also, if you know somebody that may have interest in adding or giving us his or her input as to the priorities, you will have until probably the end of September to provide the information to Dr. Duval. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, that's our suggestion. So you will be able to, at the end, make sure that each one of the members of the DAP will have a chance, the turn to speak. They may decline, saying anything now. They can send an email later, but if they have a chance now, this is where we would like to hear from you as to the top priorities. And don't be shy. Just tell us, these are my priorities. I don't, and then all this topic will be taken in consideration. But as you know, the priorities will be the leaders.
Okay, well, what we can do here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to list my top 5 priorities. And then, back when we did the ecosystem management model that we came up with the 11 top priorities, everyone was tasked with coming up with what their top priorities was. And then what we did is after everyone gave what their top priority was, we did a summary of what the top 5 was. So I don't know if we have someone that's taking notes. I believe you do, Miguel.
Yeah, I've been taking note, and I will summarize it at the end of each topic or at the end of the meeting, depending on how your preferences are.
And then if we can see what the top 5 is after everyone has named their top 5. How does that sound?
Perfect.
That sounds great, Mr. Chairman. Yep, and I'm taking notes as well.
All right, thank you. So my top 5 are going to be enforcement, pollution, lack of biological or ecosystem information, erosion and sedimentation, and coastal development. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to everyone one by one, And please list your top 5, and then after that we can see from all of us what the top 5 was as a group. So I'm going to start with Lance. Lance, what are your top 5? Are you there with us, Lance? All right, let's go to Matthew.
Good morning. My top 5 are going to be lack of biological information, enforcement, erosion and sedimentation, pollution. Both of those are kind of equal, and habitat loss. Habitat loss.
Lance, can you do it slowly?
Okay, sorry. 1,
Okay.
lack of biological and ecosystem information, enforcement, erosion, sedimentation, and pollution, habitat loss.
Thank you.
Species.
Thank you, Matthew. Daryl.
All right. So my number 1 would be enforcement, habitat loss, coastal development, erosion, and illegal fishing.
Thank you. Gregory.
I have the same, Julian McGrath. The same thing I have.
Name them out.
No, you have
Is
to name them out for the record.
Name them out.
enforcement, the lack of biology,
Biological
assessment,
lack of
enforcement,
information.
natural disaster, what I want to erosion and sedimentation, and habitat loss.
Winston Lede.
Habitat loss and destruction, coastal development, erosion and sedimentation, lack of biological or ecosystem information, and enforcement. What could I ask a question? What is a definition or a broad definition of habitat loss and destruction? It is the whole seabed, or just coastal, the coastal around the islands, the inner coast.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think what we're referring to here is any habitat loss or destruction, not only around the islands, but of loss of habitat that is important for any of the species that the council manages and that you all might be fishing for.
All right, thank you.
Well, yeah, but my definition, I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the runoff, the sediment, the waters that are not pumping out, and all our mangroves being destroyed, and our nurseries. That's why I look at it then, a little different.
And I think all of those things, because those mangroves that are being destroyed, that's one coastal habitat impact. Erosion and sedimentation is a cause of some of that, and then there is overlap in some of these topics. You know, pollution can be polluted rainwater runoff, things like that. It can also be, just, there might be places where there's raw sewage that is unfortunately entering waters and causing problems. There can be just trash or plastic that is also impacting the resources. So those all kind of fall under pollution.
All right, thank you.
I want to just find out if anybody could hear me. This is Lance. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lance. We'll come back to you in a minute, okay?
Okay.
Joshua?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. My 5 would be erosion and sediment, coastal development, habitat loss and destruction, and abundance of bait fish forage.
Great, thank you very much. Colin?
Good morning, everyone. My top 5 are enforcement, habitat loss and destruction, pollution, erosion and sedimentation, and illegal fishing.
Can you say it slowly, please, one more time?
Yeah, Colin, can you repeat that back slowly, please?
I can repeat it, yes. Enforcement, habitat loss and destruction, pollution, erosion and sedimentation, and illegal fishing.
Thank you, Colin. All right, Lance?
Yes, my number 1 would be raw sewage being pumped out into the ocean, erosion and sedimentation, lack of biological economic info, and habitat loss. I also, I don't know if this is the proper time for spitballing ideas, but I have an idea regarding solutions to some of this, but perhaps that could wait for another time.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Ruth?
Good morning. My number 1 would be climate change. Number 2 is the lack of biological and ecosystem information. The 3rd would be enforcement. 4th would be habitat loss. And you can't have loss without creation. So that would be my number 5. There has to be some sort of mitigation somewhere. So that would be my 5.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth. Elizabeth? Elizabeth Catterson? I'm not seeing you, but I saw you earlier. I don't know if anyone else is on. Is Elton George one of the callers by chance? Okay, I guess that's everyone in my group. So is it possible that we can see what the top 5 are, Michelle? I don't know if you were able.
So,
I can
I
say
think
for the
Miguel can, Miguel, do you have a
yes.
tally as well? I think we can compare because I've been trying to tally also.
Yeah, the top 1 is erosion and sedimentation. That's number 1, followed by enforcement. Then we have habitat destruction. Now we also add habitat creation and lack of information of biological ecosystem. Those are the top 5 that we have. Is that agree with your tally up, Michelle?
I had a tie for erosion, sedimentation, and habitat loss and destruction. And then after that, it followed yours.
Yeah, I have the tie too. It's just that when Ruth added the other one, I put it there. But those
Okay,
are
gotcha.
but those are the ones that we have, Mr. Chairman. And also those activities or items that are tied, they will be included, of course, in the top 5 and top 10 that we will have. So the other thing that I will, as the chair, is to see if there is anybody else present and not a member of the DAP that we have, that we like to, member of the public that we like to include their top 5 priorities.
Okay, so is there anyone else that's on the conference that would like to list their top 5 priorities? This is your opportunity. Just put your name on the record and you may proceed.
Good morning, Julian, Mr. Chairman. Hello, can you
Yes,
hear
good
me?
morning, good morning, good morning. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. I've actually been on all morning, but I haven't been able to get through, so this is good. Okay, so can I go
Put your
back and
name
do
for
my
the
report?
put your name for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Caddison.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay. So if I could just put in my 5 for the resource health. And I've been typing these out because I'm not looking at the slides, so they may be abbreviated. But I would also like to put climate change as one of the big ones, habitat loss and destruction, lack of biological science, and then I would say erosion and sedimentation and pollution.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. And then also in the chat we have Orion saying lack of biological or ecosystem information, habitat loss and destruction, coastal development, enforcement, and erosion and sedimentation. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? You're welcome to comment.
Mr. Chair, can I have Miguel repeat what were the top 5?
Yes, Miguel, when you got a minute, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the top 5 according to our list here is not in that order, but we have 9 for erosion and sedimentation, habitat loss and rehabilitation, enforcement, and lack of information on ecosystem, etc. Those are the top 5 so far. And remember, there was a tie between enforcement and habitat, but they will be included, as Dr. Michel said, it will be included in the top 10.
I have another comment here in the chat from Colin Butler. He said for his top 5, he would like to prioritize climate change instead of illegal fishing in his list.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
proceed.
really would like to see climate change make that priority list.
Name for the record.
Ruth Gomez.
Thank you.
This is Gilbert Laban. I agree with that as well.
I agree. We have another comment here from, I think it's Sinai. Climate change, lack of biological information, ecosystem, lack of biological or system information, habitat loss and destruction, and enforcement and coastal development. So I agree with what Ruth said earlier. Is there anyone that want to weigh in or have an issue with that making the list?
Mr. Chairman, remember this is the top 5. Doesn't mean that we are going to discard the others. So
Yes, I know that. I know that.
So climate change is one. So that you are all highlighted in the meeting today. So yeah, definitely Dr. Duval is taking note, and that will be included.
Anything that anyone has indicated should be a priority, we will note what all the final tallies are, the final the final numbers for each of these categories. And then, there were some that did not receive any any selection as a priority, and we'll note that as well. Like Miguel said, the list doesn't go away. It's just we're most interested in understanding, what the priorities are for St. Thomas St. John.
Great. Is there anyone else that would like to add in? Don't be shy. All the information is being gathered for a good reason.
Lance Mon, for the record. Julian, would now be a good time for me to speak on just a spitballing idea?
I guess you can speak about it. Let's see what you have to say.
Well, basically, as Ruth said, you have to have habitat creation to try to solve part of this problem. There's another problem we have is a lot of the wrecked boats around the islands, many of them. And if they were, dragged out to create an artificial reef, you could kind of kill two birds with one stone. You'd be cleaning up the mangroves, and then you would be creating a new habitat for some of the fish. Now, I don't know all the details about exactly that entails or where the money would come from, but it seems to me that would they do that in a lot of different areas where they'll create an artificial reef with wrecks, and then that becomes home to and creates new habitat. And that's it. That's just a spitballing idea. There's a lot of factors in there, but it seems to me it would clean up the mangroves and create new habitat.
Julian, if I may.
Yes, Miguel.
This is one idea that we can elevate to the council, although it's not necessarily the exercise that we have here. It's an advanced idea that we cannot let drop, because it's been used in Florida and many parts of the world. And just we take it to the council and see what interest we have from the local government authorities and the council and the federal government to pursue this. And just leave it at that.
Thank you, Miguel. I see.
Cool.
Let's see
Thumbs
here.
up.
I see Ashley Rufo also just added her 5. It's climate change, habitat loss and destruction, lack of biological or ecosystem information, pollution, and erosion and sedimentation. So this is great. We have a lot of people weighing in with the suggestions.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one question of the group before we move on to anything else?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the comments that Ruth and Lance have made about, habitat loss and destruction and habitat creation, rehabilitation. You can't really have one without the other. I could revise this to say habitat loss, destruction, creation, rehabilitation. Does the committee believe that this would be most appropriate, and then we can combine those tallies for those two categories? So I see Ruth says in the chat, yes, merge.
Yes, I was going to agree. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Instead of having them in separate categories, you can merge them.
Mr. Chair, here's the reason why I think it's a great idea to merge them. Because when you're asking people to prioritize, you're asking them to potentially choose between one or the other. And to me, like I said earlier, you can't have one without the other. Habitat mitigation is a big, it's very important. So if you lose habitat, you have to create there's creation of the loss. So those two can't be separate from each other. They are like I said, you can't have one without the other. So I think the merge is great.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we have
completely agree.
we have Senai asking for a turn to talk.
Yes, you may go ahead. Can't hear you. You may go ahead. It's still scratchy. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you.
They can write it on the chat, and Julian can
Write
read
it
it
in
for
the
the
chat and
record.
I'll read it out.
Graciela wants a turn to speak while Senai writes his comment. Hello, Julian.
Yes,
Julian,
Graciela, you may go ahead, Graciela.
thank you. So one issue that I keep thinking about is that we talk a lot about lack of data and information, but there is one aspect of data that it's called data mining, and I think that especially the USBI has a long history of data collection. I think that the problem is that most of the data might be sitting somewhere and we forget about bringing it up to date. For example, the US GS and the National Park Service have been monitoring St. John since the 50s. So one big gap that I see, it's thinking and putting money into, because it's not inexpensive, but the data mining effort for data that can show us what was before versus what it's now. So you can do some analysis, without having to have continuous monitoring. So data mining for me, it's a big issue or item that needs to be included somewhere in this resource health discussion. Thanks.
Michelle, maybe we can, the same way that we do it with the habitat loss, we can add a phrase, data mining, lack of biological ecosystem information / data mining. And that will cover Graciela's concern, Graciela, or your comment?
Yes, because if we're thinking in terms of where these lists could go, that's something that can probably be that would probably be less expensive than actually collecting new data, and really needs to be done.
Okay.
So if everyone agrees with
Right.
that.
Yes, I agree.
How's that, Graciela?
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senai already wrote on the chat his
Yes.
comments.
Yes, he said regarding the derelict boat removal, there is a marine debris action plan stakeholders meeting convened by the UVI in September. For those interested, I would recommend contacting the coordinator, Maggie Rios, and then her email address is there, maggie.rios79@gmail.com. And then also it says this may be a good opportunity to include the derelict boats as a priority into the action plan that is being developed, and to meet with other interested parties to develop a proposal to get funding for those activities through the NOAA Marine Debris Removal FY 2020 call for proposals. So I guess there's an opportunity here for us to get involved. Whoever has the chance to reach out to Maggie and see if we can be involved in this meeting in September.
Excuse me, Julian, can you say that email address again? It's MAGGIE for Maggie.
Yes, dot Rios, RIOS 79 at gmail.com.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely contact her. I did have another idea as far as funding goes. I don't know, it's probably stretched pretty thin, as many federal agencies are. Regarding living in the Virgin Islands, it seems to be an air of you get a little bit of a carte blanche by living in the Virgin Islands. When I go to the States, you check into a hotel. I've even gotten out of a speeding ticket because I live in the Virgin Islands, had a Virgin Islands driver's license. So a lot of philanthropists could be approached, whether it be Bill Gates or so many around the world, that, talking about, reconditioning the habitat to the United States Virgin Islands, it would be different than, say, like an island off the coast of Carolina or something like that. So I think it's the Virgin Islands kind of pulls a bit of weight in a lot of different areas. And also perhaps even now, this could be crazy, but a GoFundMe page for the Virgin Islands ecosystem. But just a couple of ideas on as far as trying to raise money for this habitat recreation.
Julian, I
Yes.
propose that in order for us to move, I would send an email to all the members and people here, and I have the information from Dr. Hapkins. And I will send the information on the email on Maggie Rios, the TBD program URL, the internet address, and the marine debris removal that he just posted on the chat. So everybody will have a chance to participate or learn about this initiative.
Yes, that would be great because there's a lot of information he just posted.
Yeah, we will do that, Mr. Chairman. And then we are ready, I believe, to move to the second slide.
One just quick comment from, this is Gilbert Laban, just quick comment. Similar to what Ruth mentioned about habitat loss and rehabilitation, they go hand in hand. There's a couple of things on here that they're individual points that need to be taken seriously, but in my opinion, illegal fishing needs to go under enforcement. Erosion and sediment should go under enforcement, and coastal development should also go into enforcement. So it's just kind of just to the point that I mentioned that some things weren't getting prioritized. That may be one way to ensure that everything's under there, because quite honestly, the illegal fishing and some of these things are enforcement issues.
Great comment. Great comment. And a lot of this ties right into similar like what we did with the eco-based management model, where we see all the arrows and how everything connects. So that great suggestions.
That was exactly where it came from.
Excellent, Matthew. We have here another comment here from Carlos Fischetti on the topic of derelict vessels. If I remember right, the fiberglass hulls are not allowed to be used as artificial reef sites, mostly because they move on the bottom with the surge. And then Sinai has another comment here. I would like to recommend selecting a subset of one or two individuals interested to represent the interests of the DAPs, as it is small targeted workshop. I will likely participate. So another option is to send me a list of priorities and concerns that the DAP has or would like to see included, and I will be happy to push those ideas forward.
Julian, this is an excellent idea, and I believe the right candidate is you, because one of the roles of the DAP chair is to represent the DAPs at different forums and fora. So if it's that agreeable, Julian can represent the DAP, and maybe he can be accompanied by anybody else. But at least you will have a representation from the DAP, and you can have a feedback when we meet again at the DAP level. So if Julian agrees and is able and available, he could be the representative of the DAP to this workshop.
That's fine. I'll be the representative. So is everyone comfortable that we move to the next slide? All right,
Yes.
Michelle, let's hit number 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do want to let Gilbert know that I did capture what he was saying in my notes about how, several of these issues fit under enforcement. So we have that
Yes.
for the record.
Yes, I didn't see that. So yes, it says, thank you, Gilbert. I have recorded that in my notes from Michelle. Great.
All right, so this is, our list of social, cultural, and economic concerns. And right up at the top is what the chairman was talking about earlier with regard to, closed seasons and stock assessments for the species that are impacted by the closed seasons, followed right by an assessment or evaluation of the area closures that are currently in place to see if they're meeting their designated goals. But I do think, Mr. Chairman, similar to the last time, if there's anything that isn't on this list or if there's anything that we are missing, that would be good to know. And any comments folks have about this list, we can try to address those and take the same type of approach of asking folks what their, what do they feel are the top 5 priorities here, particularly for St. Thomas, St. John.
So yes, I think we can use the same approach, and just give everybody a minute to look at the list here, and then we can go around the table again and get the 5 priorities of everyone. So everybody take a look. I'm looking myself, and I'm gonna be the first one to go again. So just give me a second.
Excuse me, Julian.
Yes.
Julian, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, Elizabeth Gadsden. Could
Yes,
could someone quickly read through the list one more time so that I can make sure that I have everything?
Which one of the list? The one that we're doing right now?
Yes, the social, cultural, and economic concerns.
Okay.
Let Michelle read it for the record.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely, no problem. So the first bullet is closed seasons and stock assessments. The next is assessment and evaluation of area closures. And I'll just note that Ruth Gomez has noted in the chat asking if we can merge those two. The next one is increasing costs. So this means increasing costs to go fishing. So that's increasing costs for fuel, bait, ice, things like that, boat upkeep. The next is competition with foreign fishermen. The next is recreational and commercial user conflicts. The next is displacement of fishing communities. So, displacement by coastal development or not having the infrastructure necessary to, have a healthy fishing community. The ability to support a family or the lack of ability to support a family. Illegal or unlicensed commercial fishers, lack of new entrants into the fishery, a lack of social and economic data, excess gear, so say too many traps in the water, something like that, market instability. So I think, the pandemic is a really good illustration of how that has impacted the market and in some places made it very unstable. Infrastructure needs, so landing and launch sites for boats, places where I think you all were talking yesterday where fishermen can can sell their fish, can clean their fish, inadequate enforcement, and excess fishing capacity. So like too many participants in the fishery. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so to start off here, I see a suggestion from Ruth that we should merge number 1 and number 2, the closed seasons and stock assessments, and assessment and evaluation of area closures. If we can merge those two together.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Anyone in opposition?
Lance Munn for the record, yes.
How does that look, Mr. Chairman? Closed seasons and stock assessments for the impacted species and evaluation of area closures.
I think that looks good. Everybody agrees? Anybody in opposition?
Perfect.
So I will start off with my top 5. And of course, the first one is going to be closed season and stock assessments for impacted species and evaluation of area closures. My second one is going to be inadequate enforcement. My third one is going to be illegal and unlicensed commercial fishers. Which one?
Inadequate thing and illegal.
No,
it's the same thing. If you ain't doing your thing, then
infrastructure needs, landing sites, and recreational and commercial user conflicts. Those will be my top 5.
Okay, for the record, Julian, just to make sure I got the right note, your top 5 are the combination of 1 and 2, closed season and area closure assessment, reef, recreational and commercial conflicts, illegal fishers, and landing sites, and enforcement. Those are your top 5 priorities.
Those are my top 5. And Ruth has asked for a turn to speak. Ruth, go ahead.
The infrastructure needs. It's important to note that in the Virgin Islands, a landing site isn't always the market site. So just because I always err on the side of detail, we add, like Daryl mentioned yesterday when we were talking about the ecosystem model, we need to put some emphasis on market sites. You know, these guys are selling out of the back of their truck on the side of the road. So can we add landing and market sites to that language? Infrastructure needs?
Sure can. Give me just a couple seconds here.
That's a very good suggestion.
You could land your fish in Hull Bay, but you could sell it in Cookie Point, in Smith Bay, or Fort Millen, or so. There needs to be a clear distinction between the two.
Ruth, does that look okay? It says landing and marketing sites.
And market sites.
Market.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so Ruth, since we have you on, would you like to list your 5 one time?
My first one obviously is closed seasons and stock assessments. The second one would be inadequate enforcement, infrastructure needs, lack of social and economic data, and increasing cost.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth Patterson, would you like to go next?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I would start with the closed seasons and evaluation of seasonal and area closures. Inadequate enforcement, maybe market instability, infrastructure needs, and I guess economic and social lack of data.
Can you repeat again, please?
The whole thing?
Yes, your top 5.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. So the first would be the closed seasons and closed area and the assessment of those. Second would be inadequate enforcement. Then market and infrastructure needs and market sites, market instability, and well, I'd go like maybe with increasing cost of gear for the last one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lance? If we lose you, Lance, we're not hearing you.
I'm sorry. I still had my mute on. My fault. Lance Mon for the record. Yes, my number 1 would be the closed seasons. And then it would be the landing and market infrastructure needs. Definitely a nicer area for people to go shop for their fish would increase sales. So that's my second one. Competition from foreign fishers. For me in particular, fishing for pelagics, that probably wasn't really applied to a lot of fishers, but for pelagics it does. So that's my third one, competition from foreign fishers. And then I'm not really sure. What I got? 3 there now? I guess inadequate enforcement. And I guess this place, I don't know. I can't really pick a third one. I'm not sure. A fifth one. I'll just say market problems.
All right. Thank you, Lance. Colin?
I have 1 closed season and stock assessment. 2 infrastructure needs. 3 increased costs. 4 illegal and unlicensed fishers. 5 inadequate enforcement. I'm kind of torn between foreign competition and enforcement for number 5, but I'm going to have to lean towards enforcement.
Okay, so
you have Gilbert Matthews on the chat.
Yes.
So for the record, he has number 1, the closed season and stock assessment, infrastructure needs. Number 2, he has inadequate enforcement. Number 3, he has legal unlicensed commercial fishers and lack of social and economic data.
And that is from Matthew Laban. All right, we Joshua.
Yes, good morning. I would start with closed season and stock assessments, increased costs, illegal and unlicensed commercial fishers, and lack of social economic data, and inadequate enforcement.
Great, thank you very much. Darrell Bryan?
Yeah, I'm going to do number 1 as closed seasons and stock assessment. Number 2, inadequate enforcement. Number 3, infrastructure needs. Number 4, illegal and unlicensed commercial fishers. And number 5, costs of gear.
Thank you, Daryl. Gregory?
Number one, closed season. Number two, increased costs. Number three is the enforcement, illegal, unlicensed fishing, commercial fishing, fishers, a lack of, what is it?
Lack of entrance into the fishery. Winston Lede?
Closed season and stock assessments for impacted species and evaluation of area closures, recreational and commercial user conflicts, infrastructure needs and market sites, and inadequate enforcement. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to put their,
I think he had one more, Mr. Chairman.
has one more?
Yeah, that was only 4.
Okay, Winston.
Okay. Lack of social and economic. Did I say that one already?
Nope.
No.
Okay, yeah.
So his last one is lack of social and economic data. And then we have here, Orion, lack of social and economic data, closed season stock assessments for impacted species and evaluation of area closures, inadequate of enforcement, infrastructure needs, and illegal and unlicensed commercial fishers. Is there anyone else that would like to comment?
We have Ashley Rufo on the chat.
Okay, I didn't see that one. Ashley Rufo, closed seasons, infrastructure needs, illegal, unlicensed commercial fishers, inadequate enforcement, and lack of data. And then we have Sinai, closed seasons and stock assessments, inadequate enforcement, infrastructure needs, lack of social and economic data, and illegal and unlicensed commercial fishers. While we wait to see if anyone else adds in, how are our top 5s looking like, Miguel?
Okay, it's interesting. We have a tie, but anyway, without any ranking, we have the merge 1 and 2, closed season and closed areas. That's the top priority. And we have enforcement, landing sites and marketing sites. Those are the 3. And then we have illegal commercial fishers. And the last one I have is a lack of social data. Michelle, is that compares to your list, top 5?
Yep, it sure does.
Okay, those are the top 5, Mr. Chair.
That's great. I think we have a great accomplishment going here today. Let's go to see.
I would, Lance Mon, for the record, I'd just like to make a comment. I am shopping Red Hook, and I continually get tourists who ask me for where they can buy fresh fish. And unfortunately, sometimes, somebody, you've got different commercial fishers are located in different spots, but only at certain times of the day. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance of an infrastructure. If there was something that was built that was kind of set up so there would be set times to sell fresh fish that was known. And I know sometimes you catch and sometimes you don't, but I'm just saying I continually get tourists asking me where they can, because they're getting a condo at Sapphire or something. They've got a kitchen in there and they want to buy fresh fish. So I get a lot of people looking. So if there was a set place, infrastructure would be very good.
Just to follow
Great
that
comment.
up,
That's a great comment. Go ahead, Matthew.
something that just came to mind is just, as you know, with COVID and all, we've all been living in a virtual world, and we are in a virtual setting right now. That's something that we might want to consider on this list. Is just, I mean, it's part of outreach, but to kind of help out in the previous comment, you know, a lot of people sell fish online from time, use Facebook to increase sales. So is that something that maybe we want to put on here as well?
That's great. Maybe we can tie it in. Let's hear what Ruth's comment is. Ruth wants the turn to speak.
Before you
Yeah.
go, Mr. Chairman, before we go to Ruth, that last comment is something that we can put a note into this. Remember, this 5-year plan is for things that the council can do. So this is something that will fall into the outreach and education. So we can, for example, send information as we had done so far. We have social networks, and we have Christina here taking notes. So that would be a positive contribution to the marketing of fish, especially among tourists. So I will make a note, and Christina is doing a note too. We also have Aida here, and we will include this in the actions the same way that we are going to include the action on derelict vessels.
Yes, because those comments can fall under several of these bullet points. So it's very important that we make sure that we capture those comments from Mr. Laban. Go ahead, Ruth.
So Raimundo Espinosa has a app that he developed under his company that has worked real well in Puerto Rico as far as putting restaurants or the general public in direct contact with fishermen as far as availability of whatever seafood it is that they have. So I think it would be a good idea to have a conversation with Raimundo to ask or to see what it is that he has developed that seems to work well in Puerto Rico, and see if we can do something similar here in the Virgin Islands. So I don't think there's somebody that's already doing, I think, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So it might just, be worth having a conversation with him and just coming up with an equivalent app for here in the Virgin Islands.
By the way, Raimundo is a member of the DAP. He's one of the NGOs that belong to the 3 DAP, so we can contact him through that. Or Julian and Ruth can also address this question directly to him.
Yes, I think that's a great suggestion, Ruth.
I'll reach out to him because we did initially have a very brief conversation about it. So I'll reach out to him and see if I can get more detail, and then I'll send an email out on what we discussed.
And I have a very good comment here from Sinai. It says, is it possible to include prioritization of locally caught seafood over imported in the market instability tab, or as another concern? And I think that's something very important, and I think it should fall under the market instability. And if anybody else has a suggestion for it to fall someplace else or weigh in on the comment, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, Lance Mono, for the record, to enhance exactly what we're talking about. As everybody knows, with the COVID, the whole restaurant industry has totally changed. They can only hold half of what they used to. Some are possibly not going to survive, but also tourists. There will be many tourists who would be probably more than happy to go buy fish at a market and take it to their apartment and cook it rather than go sit in a room full of strangers. So I think at least for the next year, it could be very tough on the restaurants, but fishers could do fairly well, I think.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Michelle. So I did alter the market instability bullet. So I included in parentheses there new ways to virtually advertise a product to address the comment from earlier about operating in a virtual world and finding ways to do that, and Ruth's suggestion to reach out to Raimundo, and then also included Sinai's comment regarding prioritizing locally caught seafood. So I just wanted to note that here.
Great. That looks excellent. Anyone else have any comments? This is your chance. It's not the last chance, but it's a good dialogue that's taking place.
Can we go to the next one?
All right, we can move forward. Oh,
Okay.
actually, can we take a 5-minute break?
Of course, you're the chairman.
Chair.
Yes, let's take a 5-minute break and we come right back. And we
Okay.
start with the third slide.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. All right. Hope everyone had a quick 5 minutes, and we're ready to start again.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I am ready when you are.
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and just like we did on the last one, I'll read through this list so that just for the record, and then if there are any specific comments or questions about the items that are on here or suggestions like has occurred with the previous themes, we'll tackle those and then we can get to everybody's priorities. So this theme area is management and operational issues. And so, this is meant to encompass things that really get to the management of the fishery, the actual regulations and things like that are put in place, or approaches that are taken, or management goals that are within the council's fishery management plans that make the fisheries work or not work, as the case may be. So the first bullet is accurate, timely, commercial, and recreational catch data. The next is enforcement of existing regulations. That's followed by fisher involvement in data collection. So again, this can be fishery dependent information, like the development of, say, an electronic reporting phone app, or it can also be help collecting information on the resource, helping scientists to do surveys. The next is regulatory consistency between federal and territorial regulations. The next is having clear management objectives so everybody knows what they're working towards. The next is bycatch and regulatory discards. The next is gear limit. So in other words, having maybe a total limit on, say, the number of traps that an individual fisher can use, or even things like a limit on if someone's using a net, a limit on the length of a net, or a limit on the number of hooks on a single rig, things like that. Cost-effective data collection technology. So making sure that the way that the data is being collected is affordable, and that we're taking advantage of technology that's available. The next bullet is balancing commercial and recreational concerns. There may be different needs and different priorities for commercial and for hire and recreational fishers. The next bullet is incorporation of climate change into management. So this would be incorporating, how climate change may be impacting species that are fished for into management. The next item is a federal permit program. Is this something that should be a priority for the council to consider? And then the next is territorial licensing requirements. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there are any comments or questions about any of these items or suggestions that people have.
Okay, I see that we have a comment here from Ruth. Can we add some language to referencing mandatory reporting? Ruth, would you like to comment on that?
Just from my experiences at Fish and Wildlife, I know compliance is, as far as it comes to reporting, seems to be an issue. And we all know when it comes to management of the annual catch limits, it's always about, data being reported in a timely manner in order to stay on top of, the ACL number. So where there is no reporting is all voluntary, and we ask that the fishers do report in a timely manner. It's not always done so. So I think there needs to be something in there referencing mandatory reporting, not just for the commercial, but the recreational sector. And then, of course, it leads the recreational catch data There is no licensing program for it. So maybe that's something else that needs to be noted, that there has to be some license, formal, official, recreational license program in place in order for them to use, in order to have them report on a mandatory basis. You can't just have the commercial guys do it and the recreational sector is free to take the resource without any sort of accountability. So that's my point.
Very good comments. We have added it in here.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of Ruth so I know where
Yeah.
to add something?
Yes.
Ruth, so I'm wondering if your comment about, requiring a permit or a license might be captured under either federal permit program or territorial licensing requirements. I could add something there, indicating that, a license would be used to help ensure accountability and reporting. Would it fit under either one of those areas?
Well, I think part of my comment goes under the first comment, the first bulletin point, but the other part has to go under territorial licensing. There is no recreational license program in the territory. There is a commercial. So there needs, and we've sort of skirted around it, and it has kind of fizzled out due to political, pressure. But we really need to do something. We need to make the recreational fishermen in the territory report, because they take from the resource just as well. And we can't keep talking about it. We need to do something about it, and it just needs to happen. And I understand it's going to be a painful process for a lot of people, but that's, to quote one of our most famous politicians, it's just what it is. It is what it is.
The blonde one?
Thank you, Ruth.
No, that's the orange one.
Yeah.
So I've added, under the first bullet here, I added, mandatory reporting for all sectors right here. And then under the territorial licensing, I added consider recreational licensing requirement to improve reporting.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Any more comments before we start to move in? I see a comment here. Well, Gilbert already, Matthew has already listed his 5, but before I read those, I'm going to mention this comment by Sinai. Is it possible to include a development of a fisheries emergency management plan that is focused on preparedness, response, and recovery after disasters, and identifying a pathway for fishermen to utilize the appropriate government resources during those times, or including this information in territorial FMPs? That's a very good statement. Where do we put it?
Actually, it's not for here, but it's one of the notes that we should point out to the council, because the 2 government representatives will be there. And I believe it's an excellent idea, because right now, whenever, and we are going to have more storms and everything, and earthquakes in Puerto Rico. So if we do something like Dr. Haptes is mentioning, the fisher will have in advance the information that they need of what is available for assisting them in these cases.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That could be in a report given to the council.
Yeah.
But that's really very important. That statement is very important.
And Julian, my point of having this report to the council is not for just checking, okay, we got the report, we send it to the council. It's for a council action. when we get to the
Yes.
council, Marcos and I have to sit down after we finish this several meetings and then take note of these comments so we can prioritize them and then have some discussion for action at the council. Otherwise, nothing will be done. And next year we'll be talking about the same thing. So my point is, Mr. Chairman, that we are going to take these notes very seriously and consider them at the next council meeting in December. We have a meeting in September, and we can put this in other business. So people start thinking about things that we can do to enhance the situation of the fishing industry here. By the way, that is also part of the Executive Order 13291 in terms of how to implement programs that will assist the commercial fishing of the United States and make it great again. So this is a good suggestion.
Yes, very good. So since Matthew listed his top five, I'm gonna start with him this time, and his top five are incorporation of climate enforcement of existing regulations, accurately, timely, commercial and recreational catch data, clear management, objective, and cost-effective data collection technology, balancing commercial and recreational concerns. Um, we're gonna go to Darrell Bryan now.
All right. I'll do number one as accurate, timely, commercial, and recreational catch data. Number two, enforcement of existing regulations. Number three, incorporation of climate change into management.
Can you do it slowly so we can make notes?
All right.
Darrell,
Number
sorry.
one, accurate, timely, commercial, and recreational catch data. Number two would be enforcement of existing regulations. Number three, clear management objectives. Number four, incorporation of climate change into management. And number five, balancing commercial and recreational concerns.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gregory?
Number one, active, timely, commercial catch data enforcement. Number three is balance commercial,
Balance commercial and recreational concerns.
recreational concern, and territory license requirement. One more.
Yep.
Fish involvement data.
So his four accurate commercial and recreational data enforcement, fisher involvement in data collection, territorial licensing requirements, and balancing commercial and recreational concerns. Winston?
Accountability and commercial recreational catch data, mandatory reporting for all, enforcement of existing regulations, fisher involvement in data collection, territorial licensing and requirements, recreational license requirements to improve reporting, and balancing and commercial and recreational concerns.
Thank you. Lance?
The accurate and timely data collection, enforcement of existing regulations, development for app collecting data, cost-effective data collection. And then can't think really of a fifth one. I'll just go with bycatch.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth?
Okay, number one would be adequate and timely catch data and mandatory reporting. Two might be enforcement of existing regulations. Three, fisher involvement in data collection. Four, territorial license requirement, recreational license program. And five, I think, a cost-effective data collection and management technology.
Thank you. And then we have here on the chat, Ruth Gomez, accurate, timely reporting, territorial license requirements, enforcement of existing regulations, fisher involvement in data collection, incorporation of climate change into management. Then we have Colin Butler. We have accurate and timely reporting requirements, enforcement of existing regulations, fisher involvement in data collection, incorporation of climate change and information management. I have another comment here from Gilbert. Is I would like to prioritize fisher involvement in data collection. Yeah, that's very important. Joshua?
Yes, sir. I'll start off with accurate, timely commercial and recreation catch data, enforcement of existing regulations, clear management objectives, incorporation of climate change into management, and territorial licensing requirements.
All right, thank you. My top 5 is accurate commercial and recreational catch data, mandatory for all sectors, enforcement of existing regulations, fisher involvement in data collection, and territorial license requirements. Consider recreational license requirement to improve reporting. But also, I want to make a comment under regulatory consistency, federal and territorial. And I know there's been a lot of discussion of compatibility in this area in a lot of recent meetings. And I think under this bullet point, we need to add where it says federal and territorial, we need to add where, I'm trying to think of the exact words that I would like to use, because it's not a one fit to all of it being compatible. I think what needs to happen is where it can work, that they should have compatible regulations. So I know compatibility can work in all areas because of the uniqueness of how we fish and the uniqueness of the Caribbean. But I know there are certain rules and regs that are in place in federal and in local, vice versa, that can become compatible. And I think it's something that we need to continue to look at. So that would fall under my even though I mentioned 5 of them, I would like that to be mentioned as number 6. It's something that we need to look into.
Mr. Chairman, I added some language there. So after federal and territorial, I added where such compatibility is feasible. Does that capture what you were trying to say?
I think, yes, it does. At least it broadens the window in that area. Did I miss anyone? Is anyone else out there that would like to comment?
So there's a couple in the chat, I think Dr. Haptas and Dr. Sadiq.
Okay, I haven't seen them. Let me check again. Yes, we have here Sinai Incorporate of Climate Change into Management, accurate, timely, commercial and recreational catch data, territorial licensing, enforcement. And then we have Orion, accurate and timely commercial and recreational catch data, claim management objectives, fisher involvement in data collection and enforcement of existing regulations. And cost-effective data collection technology. Is there anyone else? While we wait, we can look at the top 5.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, according to what you have here, not in order of priority, but the top 5 are: number 1, the accurate data, enforcement of the system regulations, fishery involvement in data collection, and I have sort of a tie here, territorial license requirements and climate change.
Great.
So the top 3 are the top, are included in the top 5, followed by the territorial number 12 and number 10, climate change.
And Miguel, I also kind of have a tie after those that you mentioned between balancing commercial and recreational concerns, cost-effective data collection technology, and clear management objectives. I have a tie amongst those 3 as well.
Yeah, I have the tie too.
So as we can see, all of those are important.
Yeah. A very important point for the record that Michelle stresses that we have the top 5, but in the report, we are going to also emphasize those topics that will come like this one. We have 3 ties. So we are not discarding anything. It's just that we want to emphasize, and let me stop here for a while. What we're going to do after this is we are going to have a 5-year management plan, strategic plan, that will have milestones. So we all, and I mean the council, the DAB, everybody involved in fishery management, the public, of course, we have a clear picture as to where we're going, where are the milestones, have we achieved what we said to do in the last 12 months, have we done it? If not, where are we going? Data gaps, et cetera, et cetera. So this is something that will be a dynamic document. It will be reviewed when needed, and we will come back to you on time also to review what we have here. The other thing is that once you have this 5-year strategic plan, you as member of the DAPs, member of the industry, members of the public, can have a check and balance and ask the council, hey, what are you guys doing with this? You were supposed to do it 6 months ago and you haven't touched it. So the council must have a very good explanation, or otherwise we are not following what we said to do in the next 5 years. That's the importance of the involvement of fishers, scientists, and the general public in this exercise. Are we ready for the next one?
Yes, let's move to the next one. I don't see any more in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next one is communication and outreach. And again, the Outreach and Education Advisory Panel also reviewed these and so these specific bullets, and they are also being asked to provide their priorities. There are fewer topics under this theme. So, you know, maybe for this one, once we go through them and address questions or make any additions or modifications, people may simply want to order them from 1 to 6, or provide whichever ones I think are most important. But it starts with the frequency of communication. So how frequently stakeholders and the public receive communications from the council. Would they like to receive alerts or reminders of scoping meetings or council and council related meetings? The next bullet deals with the variety of tools that are used in the council's communications. So what types of tools are most important, or would people prefer that the council use to communicate with them? So whether that's email, having information on the council's website, suggestions for how the council uses its social media accounts, use of paper. We know that, for some people, paper is still a very important means of communication. Another suggestion that was made was use of text message alerts. So just like you get a text message from your doctor reminding you of an upcoming doctor appointment or a dentist appointment, this might be another tool that the council has the opportunity to use to remind people of meetings. The next bullet is educational resources, so information that the council could provide to help people better understand and participate in the management process. So this could be information on science and stock assessment, business planning for fishers, information for the public on restaurant choices, in other words, seafood choices. So this kind of ties in with some of the activities that the OEAP is already involved in, working with chefs, things of that nature. Improving general public awareness of fisheries issues. So, making sure that the public has information to better understand how U.S. Caribbean fisheries operate. Having regular in-person outreach workshops on important topics. So this was a suggestion that was made to try to bring more people into the process, more fishers into the process. So having, as I said earlier, a meeting on an island, an in-person meeting where fishers can come to hear information about a particular issue or topic that is very important to them and might capture their interest and increase involvement in the council process. And then finally, one thing that came up was also just the clarity and simplicity of presentations that are made to the council. The council deals with a lot of complicated issues. You all as advisors deal with a lot of complicated issues, and the point was made that sometimes the presentations that the council receives or that the advisory panels receive are complex and difficult for fishers who have not been involved in the process for a long time to understand, or that members of the general public who have not been involved in the process can understand. And so having clear, simple presentations can also bring more people into the process. So, Mr. Chairman, that is it. I'm happy to take any questions or see if anyone has any comments.
So, Julian, in other words, this slide, all of them are high priority. So the question here, rather than 1 through 5, we have done in previous ones, is just to ask the group whether we are missing anything, or whether we want to emphasize any of this as tool for outreach and education and communication. For example, in the case of paper, I did a little bit of an official survey several years ago among the fishers that come to public hearings, public meetings of the council. And I asked them how they would like to receive the information from the council, being that reports, invitations to meetings, etc. And to my surprise, they said, paper. I want you to send me a paper so I can post the paper on the wall of my fishing village, followed by emails. Nowadays, they are using social media, especially after the COVID-19 situation. Social media is becoming more important. Just to give you an idea, in the case of Puerto Rico, Christina Land's initiative, she put together a table, a matrix of fishers and fish dealers that were available, so people can look at it and ask for directions to go and buy fish from them. And it has been a success story. Also, they're using Facebook, as you know, Instagram and others to advertise their business. The other thing that somebody mentioned to me and to bring it to your attention is to strengthen the role of the liaison officers in Puerto Rico and the USVN islands that deal with fishers, government officials, and federal and local government agencies. And it's for you to comment on that suggestion. So with that, we would like to hear if we have missed anything here, or you would like to stress a point or emphasize a tool that we should be using versus another,
All right, Joey McGrath for the record. I agree. I agree with the statement where all of these points are very important. So yes, to try to put them from 1 to 6, it's not needed. Um, when you come down here to the last bullet with the clarity and simplicity of presentations, that's very important, because a lot of the fishers that that get involved, when they see these equations, they they wonder, what are all of these equations all about? And when you put it in a simpler process, they tend to understand what's going on. And a lot more outreach and education and communication is really needed. And I'm hoping with all of this going forward, we're gonna see a lot more of it taking place. I know I was very pleased to see that Ruth Gomez now sits on the committee as a representative for St. Thomas St. John, because I know she's gonna push forward to ensure that we get a lot of this information brought to the fishers and to the public. It's not only the fishers; it's very important for the public and the restaurants and even our visitors to understand what's going on. A lot of people don't understand what's going on until there's an issue where you're in a public hearing fighting for the fishery, or trying to approve a new management plan, or pushing through something. So I think with a lot more of this education and communication and outreach, it's going to be a lot easier to move forward. And then another comment, I don't know where the liaison fits into all of this, because I haven't seen that individual involved in anything that's been going on in these meetings. And, I don't know how you can be involved if you're not involved in bringing information across, if you're not involved in these meetings to understand what's going on. So I don't know what's the role, what meetings are they expected to be involved in. It would be great that information can be provided for us to understand what their roles are. I leave it open up for anyone else that wants to comment.
So, Julian,
Yes, Miguel.
would you like to add that? Specify the role of the liaison officer. They are attending the outreach and education panel, but from what you're talking, you would like to include them also so they can participate as listeners to the DAPs. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, they should be involved in all that's going on, because if they're only involved in the outreach and education committee, when they're in a meeting and I'm in a meeting, and I'm saying something, they have the slightest idea what's going on. And I think everyone needs to be on the same page. So you have your chairperson for that committee that reports to the council at every council meeting. But here it is, you don't have the involvement of the two representatives from St. Thomas and St. Croix at meetings saying, well, what has taken place at their meetings, and what are they doing, where are they bringing, who are they bringing the information to? Because we don't know that. We don't know what's going on.
So a suggestion could be for expanding the role of fishery liaisons and ask them to give a presentation at each council meeting of activities in between council meetings.
Yeah, that would be a good suggestion.
Okay.
I see
The other
somebody in
thing
the
I was
chat.
going to ask, Julia, if I may, the other thing I was going to ask the group, which is important. By the way, there are studies that have been made nationwide, worldwide, that is similar to what you were talking here. They discovered that around the world, they have been documented by experts. Whenever you have a workshop directed toward fishers and the general public, they pay attention to what is being said, especially is what is being said is communicated by a fisher or somebody they trust. But no matter who's talking, as soon as they hear scientific jargon, they stop listening, they stop reading. So this goes to clarity and simplicity of presentation. Of course, there are some formulas that you cannot do away with it because they are part of the law. But the council should emphasize this in our 5-year strategic plan and the presentations that we have. The question I have for all of you is that I've been told before that in the U.S. Virgin Island, people pay attention to radio and newspapers to get the information. That was several years ago. In the case of Puerto Rico, they don't pay too much attention to the radio. They use mostly the newspaper, especially El Vocero, which is the one that's mostly distributed. So the question to you is that still true? Shall we make an effort to use the radio more often, or the papers, or that's something that is not needed at this time?
Well, I truly think it's mixed. It all depends on the generation that you're dealing with, the generation of individuals. So, the younger generation like social media. Then you have a lot of the older people that like to follow the daily news, which the younger generation does not follow. And, as far as announcements in on the radio, people do listen and people do carry the message across. So I think it's a mix communication. So I know it becomes difficult if we say, well, we need to do it in all of them. But I don't know how many people that actually follow the website of the council, but when something is announced like this meeting, we share it on social media so the public can see. So, but I do think advertising it in the daily news and advertising it on the radio is also very important. And then we have a bunch of stuff here in the chats. We have from Alida, we have the OEAP also has Fisher and Liaison from St. Thomas and St. Croix. And then she says also, agree with Julian, it will be very important to have them inform about the activities in each island to the council. And then Ruth also commented here on the communication. It depends on the age group. So if anybody else wants to weigh in, please weigh in on this.
Julian, Ali Ortiz, the chair of the OAP, also mentions that important to mention that in each OAP, in the OAP, we have representation from the fishing sector. We have Ruth Gomez representing St. Thomas, St. John. We have Gerson Martinez representing San Croix, and we have Andy Maldonado representing the fishers of Puerto Rico. She wanted to make a point of that.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Michelle. So I did want to note that I added this bullet down here at the bottom that says expand the role of fishery liaisons beyond participation on the OEAP to better understand fishery issues. For example, give presentation of each island's activities at council meetings. Does that capture your comments and what you were saying earlier about making sure that the liaisons participate more or have the opportunity to participate
Yes,
at the
it
DAP
does.
level?
It does, but at the same time, it would we would like a definition of what the role of the liaison person is supposed to be doing, so we also can understand. In other words, I'm the chair of the DAP for St. Thomas St. John. My members know what my role is, and our job at the end of the day is to carry the information what is that we have learned here or discussed and carry it out into the community to the fishers and to the public and share it as much as we can share it. So when it falls to the liaison, because this is all new and that just started, we would like to know what their roles are so we could understand that if we need to call on them to help us with any of the duties, that we can call on them. Just like I can call on the council if I have an issue, I can call them and say, well, can I get clarification on this? Can you tell me the direction and where to move with this and so forth?
Julian, I made a note here, and let me explain how the liaison works. And we started liaison with Elena Anton. Some of you know her from council meetings. And the role of that person depends on what the local government and the federal government would like them to do. I make a note here that the two liaisons, the new ones from U.S. Virgin Islands, shall meet with the chair of the DAP, other leaders of the fishing community, both in St. Thomas and John and St. Croix, and bring to the next council meeting a report of issues and topics that the fisher community of both areas would like to continue discussing with the council. Also, you mentioned an important role, which is to bring to the council attention those issues that are of importance to the fishing community. And fishing community, I include their recreational, commercial dealers, anybody who has anything to do with the fishing industry of the U.S. Caribbean. In the case of Puerto Rico, Wilson Santiago has a program that they call PEPCO, the Program for Education of Commercial Fishers. That program was initiated by Elena Antoun, and the program is a little bit stopped now because of the COVID, because the effectiveness of this program is to have an in-person workshops with the fishers. And they give a report to the council how many people were engaged in each PEPCO, how many fishers, the topics that they are interested. And believe it or not, the majority of the people who have attended this workshop in the last several years didn't know the council existed. They didn't know what NOAA was. They didn't know what the local regulations were or who to go to get a license, to obtain a license. They didn't know many of these issues that we take for granted. And that's why we pass the information to the Virgin Islands, and we support using liaison funds and basic funding of the council to have this two liaison officers. But the liaison officer's position is as effective as the terms of reference that you provide to them. So in this case, I will make a point of meeting with all the liaison officers and develop the terms of reference. And then the next step will be for them to meet with the fishing community leaders of each island and start talking about the commonalities of issues that we have here. It will be very important for them to know what's going on in each DAP meeting. And now that are virtual, they, at least for this year and next year, they can attend all these meetings virtually. So they will take note of the issues and worries and concerns that the fishing industry has, both again, the recreational and commercial fishery as well. And I have here a comment by Ruth.
Yes, it says, can we have a go-to meeting with the DAP, the OEAP, and the liaison since there has been no formal introduction? And that's to you, Miguel.
Well, the OEAP is already included there. So yes, we can have a joint meeting, virtual meeting of the three, and it could be done in October, for example. We are going to have a meeting as we agree in October, on October the 7th, and we can take that same date and have a meeting in the afternoon, 2 hours with all these groups meeting at the same time. Remember, Julian, that we plan to have a March meeting, and all the chairs suggested to have all the DAPs together. So we can have all the three DAPs together on October the 7th to go over, in the afternoon, I mean, to go over the topics that we are discussing here. And that will be some of the basics. So for the liaison effectiveness in discussing issues that are relevant to the fishing industry. So I can say that October 7th, from 9 to 12, we already have the EO activity. And then we can have from 1 to 3 that day, if you want to, a meeting to serve as an introduction. And I will call on Ruth and you and the other chairs to give us some topics that we can discuss at that meeting, and also have presentation by Wilson Santiago, Nikita Charles, and Nicole Grill on their activities so far. If you all agree, I can start working on the agenda for the 2 meetings and the go-to-meeting invitation.
All right, that's great. Great. Anybody else have any more comments that they would like to make?
Mr. Chairman, this is Michelle.
Yes, Michelle.
So I guess maybe just one more question, because all of these issues that you pointed out are very important. I was just wondering if there was any additional comment that anyone wanted to provide on, the frequency of communication, if it needs to be more frequent, or I know you already have discussed how the communication tools are generational in nature, and that certain methods and tools are more suited for the younger generation versus the older generation. Do you all feel that you are receiving frequent enough communication or reminders of upcoming council meetings or events, or are there any additional suggestions in there?
Well, I think the suggestions here are great. The frequency of meeting announcements, the meetings. Sometimes it's always good to send out a reminder. I'll draw you guys a perfect example. With me being the chair of my committee, I take my role very seriously, and to ensure that I'm going to have a quorum for a meeting. My members can tell you that over the last week, I have emailed them or texted them at the minimum 3 times, reminding them of this meeting and asking them if they would be available. If someone didn't answer, I took it upon myself to give them a telephone call. And sometimes you hear fishers or people who are in committee says, "Oh, I didn't check my email in days," or stuff like that. That's not your problem, but it's the issue is sometimes if you can send out a reminder, because we announce the meetings way in advance, maybe the week prior to a meeting. If we just send out a reminder, don't know how that task is, if it's difficult for the council to do, but I do it for my meetings.
Julian, uh, before Ruth have a turn to speak, that's what I've been doing with virtual meetings. I send a reminder, so I try to send it a week in advance, and sometimes people ask me to send it the night before because they just learned that they have a meeting. So we do our best to do that. Diana has a
Yes.
list of all the members. We sent, for example, several weeks ago, we sent to 65 members of the council community the EO for 13291. So I believe that that's a very positive comment that we should be mindful and doing it. I have a comment here that the meeting should be quarterly. In the case of virtual meetings, we can have a meeting every month, but in the case of in-presence meeting, there are budgetary constraints. The other thing that the lawyers keep telling us is that you don't meet for the sake of meeting. So you have to pre-plan ahead what you are going to discuss in those meetings. And in the case of the CFNC and the 7 other councils, that's a point that is bring every time to the attention of the councils. In the case of the U.S. Caribbean, we meet every December to plan the meetings for the following year. So I believe that we can do the same thing with the DAPs and plan the meetings for the following years. We do it in the budget all the time, but in this case, once the island-based FMPs are approved in 2021, we will rely more on meetings with the DAPs, looking at possible amendments and recommendations. Once this 5-year management plan is implemented also, we will rely on the DAPs and other advisory bodies as to have a check and balance where we're going, where we are, and where we're going with all this. So there's a lot of work ahead of time. And this is the last comment. I believe that the rest of the chairs should make a point of following Julian's example and do their best to inform their group, their peers of what's going on. Most of the time, Nelson does that, and sometimes he just force them to be at meetings because many of the fishers in Puerto Rico, they are shy because they believe everything is in English. But now that's not an excuse because we have a translation for the DAP meetings in Spanish. So much so that sometimes when you call like today, you receive the Spanish translation rather than the English one. So that's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman. You have another almost another hour, so
Yeah,
you can bring other business if you want to.
Can anybody hear me? This is
Yeah,
Lance Bonham for the record.
Yeah, wait a minute, Lance. I had Ruth that asked for a turn to speak. Let me give her the opportunity.
Okay.
So what I meant by at a minimum, it should be quarterly, as a council meet quarterly. We talk about getting fishers involved in the process. We've been saying it for years. And I think one of the things that we need to do, and we owe it to the fishers and the user groups, is to let them know what it is that's happening at the council meeting. And by reporting to them, it doesn't have to be this long, detailed, drawn out thing. It could be a simple one-page flyer that's posted on the council's website that lets the general public know what was accomplished or discussed at the council meeting. And if they want further information, well, then they can always reach out to the liaison, members of the DAP, members of the OEAP, members of the council, or the actual council staff themselves, right? To get further clarification. But we have a tendency, you know, and especially now that we've gone to virtual meetings, it takes place and then there's nothing that's given back to the fishers. So I think it's really important that we start to find ways to get them more involved. And as we talk about communication and outreach, simplicity, we talked about that, is a good thing, and it could be accomplished in various ways. And the end result, you know, would accomplish what it is that we're trying to get to, which is getting the public more educated as far as the process, you know, trying to reduce the level of intimidation. You know, some fishers are like, no, I don't want to do that because, you know, it's a nightmare. And I've heard such, you know, crazy things about the council. It's just too complicated for me. In addition to a host of other things. So we can give back to the community and the fishers by a simple bulletin point, you know, flyer or whatever that's posted on the council website. Because once it's posted, you can pick it up, and in the space of 10 seconds, it's halfway across the world. So, you know, I think we really need to do that.
Okay, Julian, if I may, I had this for other business, but now that Ruth mentioned it, in my notes, and I discussed this with the chair of the council, GoToMeeting is a tool that we used to have. I was the first one who have a GoToMeeting license many years ago, and other councils, they do also have internet platforms for many years. And my idea was that now that we have this tool, we are using social network, we are using everything that we didn't use before. The fishermen are beginning to understand these internet issues and presence and how to deal with computers and telephones. So my idea was that, well, it's not was, I'm gonna do it anyway. I will have, and it was going to be quarterly, but could be even bi-weekly, but or every other month. But meetings where the features, that could be a webinar or a GoToMeeting, will hear the presentation of the newsletter that Dr. Larry Ortiz prepared after each council. So you will have sort of a feedback from the council, and then we can read and include for the record what the council's activities have been during the last meeting, and that way we can establish them back and forth. Even if we are able to start everybody vaccinated, start in-person meetings again in 2021-22, we still can keep the GoToMeeting tools for communication. So that's why I couldn't agree more with Ruth about this. And if this should be, and as I said, I have for other meetings, but through the chair could be, and I believe that Ruth and Julian can draft something, should be send an email to me and the chair of the council of this idea of maintaining the communication with the fishing communities. And I had this for tomorrow and day after tomorrow for the other two DAPs. Because if we have the support of the DAPs on these ideas, it will be easier for us to allocate time, money, and funds, time and funds for doing this. Thank you, Julian.
All right, thank you. Excellent. And then we have a newsletter is a wonderful idea. That's from Ruth. Yes, newsletters do carry off a lot of very good information. The St. Thomas Fishermen's Association used to do it, and we're going to be looking at doing it again in the near future. And trust me, you know, that used to go all over the world.
Yeah, newsletter is the last one of the tools according to the studies because of the social network. So what we have done in the case of the council, we have an electronic newsletter, but I believe that what you're talking about here is also to have a paper newsletter again. And the newsletter do not have to be a 10-page newsletter. It could be just a one-page summary of what's going on. If you look at the web page that we have on the other council, that's what they do after each meeting. So we're making a note of this and make sure that we will do the best possible develop the best possible tool to communicate with the people.
Oh boy.
Lance, you said you had a comment earlier. Are you there still?
Yes, yes. Lance Monum for the record. I want to talk a little bit about like the outreach to bring more fishers. Here in St. Thomas, what I kind of think is a looming problem is youth programs. Now, Jimmy Loveland used to have a Boy Scouts tournament. He would get all the local youth or a lot of the local youth involved in fishing. It was kind of a big event. Jimmy's getting pretty old. Now, I don't think we did it this year because of COVID, but I'm not even sure if he did it last year because I'm not sure how much longer Jimmy's going to be able to do that. I don't understand that organization is having trouble, but I don't know if anybody, maybe it could be posted somewhere if somebody's interested in kind of say like taking the baton from Jimmy because he really had a big group of young people that had a ton of fun going fishing. Sometimes it would be a couple of donated boats. Sometimes it'd be off the docks. But he would get the youth interested in fishing. And along now, what with the golf course on the island being gone, there's not a lot for the youth to do on this island. So, I mean, they used to have golf. And Jimmy would take them and teach them about fishing, and the golf's gone, and I think Jimmy's either gone or going in the next year or two. So I don't know if there's a way to try and reach out to somebody who is maybe has the time to do that, kind of take the baton from Jimmy and just try to organize some of these programs to get youth involved in fishing.
That's a very good suggestion, Lance. Wouldn't you like to do that?
Well, my retail shop is about 50 times the work as my video rental shop was. I never should have opened the thing, along with my 6-unit rental complex. And somebody told me I got a boat around here somewhere. But anyway, yeah, I'm just kind of pointing out that a big change is coming because I don't think Jimmy can handle it anymore. Maybe I should speak to Jimmy directly, and maybe he's got something in mind, or he's already got somebody in mind to maybe carry that on. But it's really, I think, the youth of St. Thomas, it's not like the States where there's so many different recreational things to do. And unfortunately, if you don't have a lot, something, a hobby or something like that, whether it be tennis or football or basketball, we got a little bit of that, but anyway, they can oftentimes turn to, drugs and other such things. So it's really good for the youth to get involved in these kind of programs.
Okay, so what I recommend, if you can reach out to him and see what information you can gather, and if you can get that information back to me, that would be great, and we'll see where we can move from there.
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I'll talk to Jimmy.
Julian, I would like to ask a question to Michelle.
Yes.
Michelle, do you have everything that you needed from this meeting, or there's something else that you will need to get some input from the group?
Thank you, Miguel. No, I think I have everything from the meeting. I have, my tally sheets, and you have your tally sheets, and I think we've had a great discussion here today. I think probably the only thing I just want to do is go to this last slide, which has my contact information, and it does say on there to please send any additional comments and input by September 15th, but I'm flexible with that deadline. If it could be by the end of September, that would be great as well. I think, because the council was going to be seeing the same presentation that the DAPs are seeing this week, and we want to provide just a brief update to the council at their meeting that they'll be having on September 25th. That was the only reason to have comments in by September 15th. But I think if folks can get any additional thoughts they have on any of these 4 theme areas, you know, I've been taking notes this whole time, and I really appreciate everybody's patience. And Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate you and your committee being the guinea pigs for this approach. You all are the first DAP to see this, and I think your input and contributions have improved the presentation. So I really just want to thank you and your members for everything that you've contributed.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. It was an excellent presentation. It was easy to follow, and the involvement of our members was great. I do have a request. If this presentation can be emailed to the group, so if you can email that, that would be great. I see that you have answered yes. So anyone else? Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say I will email the updated presentation. So, you know, with the changes that you all have made here, so I can email a PDF of that to Miguel so that he can get that out to all of you, because I don't think I have everyone's email address. So it'll probably be easier for Miguel or Diana to email it to everyone.
That's great.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Michelle? All right. Well, thanks again, Michelle, for a great presentation. We look forward to continue working with you here in the near future and continue doing such a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you all as well. There will be more. I just wish they were in person.
One of these days soon.
That's better.
Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add on the other business today? Miguel, is that it for us today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you can close the meeting. And then, as I said, the commitment that we have here is by October 7th, from 9 to 12, we will be discussing the executive order. And by the way, we are going to send you, Natalia is going to send you a package, 25 hard copies of the EO. And it's going to be advertised in our webpage. And then in the afternoon of October 7th, we will have a joint meeting of all the DAPs and the OAP, and that will be chairs and members, of course, to discuss with the liaison officers of the 3 islands areas issues that are going to be presented at the council later. But this will be kind of an introduction meeting of all the members of the DAPs, liaison officers, and government officials if they want to be there, and the most importantly, the topics. So my suggestion to the members of the group is to think about topics that you would like to discuss, general topics that you would like to discuss at that meeting, and send it to Julian. So Julian and I can work on an agenda with the other 2 chairs for that meeting. And that's all we have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a
Thank you very much.
Finish the meeting.
I make a motion to close the meeting.
I second.
I'm seconding.
All right. Thank you guys very much again, and I thank my entire team and all the presenters and Miguel and your staff. Thank you very much for such an excellent meeting, and look forward to continuing this dialogue here in the very near future. You guys be safe and chat soon.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you.
Buenos dias.
Thank you. Good day.